Your brain is one of the most extraordinary objects in the universe. Weighing in at roughly 3 pounds, with a walnut-like appearance and squidgy texture, everything we experience consciously and unconsciously happens in here. Deep inside the brain, information is communicated through the release of chemicals and electrical impulses. These impulses travel along brain cells called neurons. Scientists estimate that we have 100 billion neurons forming networks and connections between the brain and the body. Motor neurons controlling the muscles, and sensory neurons which share information from the environment. For example, what we see, hear, feel and taste. A popular theory of brain organization is that of the Triune Brain. This describes the brain in terms of 3 distinct sections, with a hierarchy of refinement and consciousness. The first, lowest area deals with our physical and unconscious functions like breathing, heart rate and hunger, and is known as the reptilian brain because we share it with reptiles like alligators. The second area deals with memory, emotions, bonding and reactions like the fight or flight response, and is known as the mammalian or limbic brain. The top part of the brain is called the cerebral cortex, and this deals with most of our conscious activity like reading, writing, art, thinking and performing skilled movements. The area at the front of the cerebral cortex is where input from all parts of the brain and sensory systems are filtered and integrated with thought and experience. And it's the smart brain that you're using right now to do most of the listening, looking and learning. When we experience stress in a negative way, activity in the front of the cerebral cortex and then across the whole of this smart brain decreases, leaving us functioning from the more emotionally reactive or reflexive lower centres. Unfortunately, this primitive survival mechanism still functions today, and the stresses faced in our teaching and learning environments are enough to trigger these responses, just at the time when we really need all the functions of our integrated higher brain centres to work together. If you look at the cortex, you will see that it is divided into 2 parts, referred to as the left and right hemispheres. These hemispheres are constantly receiving and sending information to and from the body and the senses. The hemispheres themselves are connected by a thick bundle of nerves called the corpus callosum. This acts as a bridge, connecting the 2 hemispheres and enabling a constant flow of information. Interestingly, when the electrical impulses from the body and senses arrive at the cortex, they have crossed over to the opposite side of the brain, meaning the right hemisphere of the brain controls the left side of the body, and the left side of the brain controls the right side of the body. Therefore, if we move the fingers of one hand into a shape, the letter E for instance, it is mainly the hemisphere on the opposite side of the brain working it all out. However, each of us tends to be more reliant on one hemisphere than the other. Indeed, this dominance can also be seen in our hands, eyes, ears and feet. And our dominant hand, eye, ear and foot will feed information into the brain hemisphere on the opposite side of the body. When stressed, the communication between the right and left hemispheres is reduced, as we tend to operate predominantly from our default or dominant hemisphere. Simply put, when stressed, we become more restricted to our dominant hemisphere and to the dominant senses that communicate directly with it. If we take a view of the brain, we can see that the cortex has specialist areas making sense of what we are doing. When we see things, the area at the back of the brain is active. When we hear music, people talking, when we make our plans for the weekend or organise our learning, different specialist areas become active. What we now know is that although when you hear someone speak and the speech centres in the brain become active, they are not the only areas of the brain working. At any time, there is activity diffused across the brain, showing that for our best possible performance, we need the whole brain working in a cohesive and integrated way. In a similar way, whenever an ILP report indicates a tendency towards one sort of mental processing, there are always suggestions for activities to strengthen the lesser used pathways. As a teacher, you will find that both individuals and groups will show strong tendencies towards one way of learning. The aim of highlighting these trends is not to suggest that each person should be taught solely to their preferred strengths. Indeed, a rich multi-sensory environment benefits all learners, and every teacher will have their own teaching styles. Rather, the ILP reports will provide important knowledge which can be drawn upon to support students when the going gets tough, to help pupils help themselves, to aid the organisation of groups for classes and projects, and to complement existing teaching methods. ILP has been designed to enhance teaching and learning by understanding how our brains work. The easy-to-understand ILP profiles will help you understand you and your students' learning needs. They give an insight into how stress can affect individuals and suggest personalised learning techniques, classroom positioning, teaching strategies and specialised exercises to reduce stress and engage the brain for learning. It will help you understand your natural learning strengths, thus helping you to achieve with ease and attain the success you deserve.